and welcome to the Autumn Colors Podcast, Solo Edition. I'm your host, the Art Sozo-sha, and today I decided to essentially talk about a game that's kind of important to me, and that is Persona 3 Reload. Now, generally this is going to be about Persona 3 in general, but the reason why I haven't really decided to invite anyone else onto this one, the reason why I haven't bothered to bring back Kagado for this, the reason why I haven't bothered to bring back Bun for this, or even invite anybody else for the podcast for this, is because this one I kind of wanted to be a little more personal. This is kind of something where I feel I just kind of wanted to make a podcast episode by myself because I have history with this game. I have history with Persona in more ways than one. So, yeah, I just wanted to make this episode and sort of get my thoughts all together about it because it's been about 2 years since I played it now. Relatively, more or less. It's also been like a year since I revisited it with the answer. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out where to start, but I guess I should start just a quick rundown for anyone who's just like unaware of like my history with this. So I had to deal, this was like back in like 2011 or so, I had to deal with very annoying JoJo fans who constantly, they just pissed me the fuck off regarding JoJo's and everything, so much so that I didn't want to fuck with it. And then my friend introduced me to Persona in the most confusing way possible, but that led me into checking out the series. I checked out Persona 1. It wouldn't play for me. Persona 2, I tried playing it and my save data crashed. And then Persona 3 was the one where like it finally clicked. It was the one where it finally clicked, and I think overall it was just like this was the game that I think got me really hooked into Persona. Just this concept, this idea, this world, these characters. This was something that really I latched onto. And then I checked out Persona 4. And I was really not too keen on the actual story all too much, but I really liked the characters. I liked the characters in Persona 4 a lot, more so than I did in 3. And years later, I would check out Persona 5, which, I mean, at first, I was really enjoying it. And then I had to deal with the crowd. I think a lot of you know who I'm talking about. The people who have, like Persona 5 a little too much. You know what I mean? But yeah, but years went by, so on and so forth. A lot of feelings get aired out and vented out and everything, but Atlas announced that they were coming out with Persona 3 Reload, which I was just glad that we were getting something else other than Persona 5 for once, so I was more than happy to buy it. But my biggest worry, and I think this is understandably so, a worry across the board for anybody who's a fan of Atlas games, is that my biggest worry was that when I buy it some years later, like a couple of years later or so, they're just gonna re-release the game with basically is a definitive version, and it's gonna have a lot of the stuff that people have been wanting out of the game and everything, like wanting the improvements and everything, and I have some things I want to talk about with that, and I will leave that for, I think, the end, because I think I'm gonna get way too deep into that. I want to talk about Persona 3. I want to talk about Persona 3 Reload. I want to talk about overall just my history with Persona 3 and just how I feel about what Reload does. Jeez. Persona and titled with R. How could I ever get those mixed up? No, but I want to talk about Persona 3 Reload and sort of my overall just impression of it, and just kind of discuss it more or less from beginning to end, what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it, what I noticed about it, and what I feel, I did notice, but I just didn't really like about it, or so on and so forth, So, I think the first thing that I want to talk about, just overall, how do I feel about the game? Like, how do I feel about this? Like, how do I feel about Persona 3 Reload as a whole? And I have to say, I think it's fun. I think it's a good modern interpretation of Persona 3. I think I want to say remake. I feel like this is genuinely a remake, not necessarily a remaster, because they remade a lot of this top to bottom and added in a lot of stuff that wasn't in natively either in Persona 3 or FES. Like some stuff in Portable, for instance. But overall, I mean, this game, I think, it's very beautiful. I don't want to downplay that or anything. Persona 3 Reload is a very beautiful game. I love the music. I love the gameplay for the most part. I love the gameplay for the most part. I think as a modern day take on Persona 3, it's sort of essentially as the game that started the formula where Persona is. I think its retelling of where it essentially got its start and its updates throughout that over the years, I think is very... I think it's actually very... it's interesting. Also, I realized this, that, I think essentially, I didn't realize this until, like, just now, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of nice that I'm doing this in 2026. Because this is, I think, I would say the 20th year anniversary of when this game, I think, came out. When did Persona 3 first come out? Let's ask the internet. Because I think it was either 2005 or 2006, right? Released outside Japan. It's a 2006, yep. So this would be 20 years after the game's, the Persona 3's initial release, more or less. So yeah, it is, since then, that is 20 years, including FES, that is 20 years of experience changes, alterations, and adjustments to the formula and whatnot of what they've essentially done. And I've seen a lot of different changes and additions to this that were either, I think, in other iterations of Persona, particularly Persona 3, as well as, 4 and 5, but also, I think also in the anime, because the one thing I noticed is, for one, the cutscenes have a lot of in-engine visuals, sort of what they did with Persona 5. Except for that, I think that was more so towards a lot of the awakening scenes and some of the events here or there, like with the palace rulers. I think more or less that was the case. But in Persona 3 Reload, a lot of the cutscenes in this game are not done in the more 2D format. And a lot of ways, I think this might be to save money, because that way they don't have to commission and hire an entire animation studio to be able to do that. Like, I forget who was responsible for the animated cutscenes in the original Persona 3, but yeah, a number of the cutscenes that were handled initially in that are done through the in-game engine, which I think showcases a genuine, like, a sort of, it shows genuine improvement in technology for them. In that, I mean, before, like, when you really consider going back to Persona 1, right? A lot of their big emotional or big, like, grandiose moments that they had was done mainly in specific like new animated cutscenes and whatnot, which I think all were done in engine, but you know, you look at them nowadays and they're very, you know, choppy. Whereas with Persona 3, a lot of the cutscenes, even Persona 4, a lot of the cutscenes were done in animation. And I think more or less because, you know, they really couldn't I don't really think they could make the 2D engine of what they had for both those games look as good as it could be. I think that was a way to sort of mask the sort of like limitations that they were capable of at times, which I think it worked for the time. But I would say that just as it is now, I think it shows their how they've improved over time with what they've been able to do in making these games. And honestly, it's like it's impressive. I genuinely think like I'm still kind of iffy on some of the like 3D cutscenes. Not necessarily whether or not they look good, but it's just like some of them I just kind of would have preferred to see in 2D animation, like the awakening scene for the protagonist. Like, there's a reason why, in particular, the original scene sticks out of my mind in 2D, and that's because of the art direction that they went with, the colors, the visuals. It really felt like I think in the original it just hit a lot harder just because of that art direction and that artistic eye for those little tidbits and little differences and little things in just 2D animation. Whereas with, I don't know, with 3D, it's not bad. I just feel like it's a little more, I don't know if watered down really is the right word, but it does feel a little, it feels like it's lacking. I don't know. But, you know, it's nitpicks every so often. It's not something I can't deal with. Speaking of things it's not, speaking of things that are not something I can't deal with, I mean, the acting, I think, is one of the biggest differences in this. I know a lot of fans, I remember the day this got announced, is that almost nobody from, pretty much almost nobody from the original cast was going to be reprising their roles as the party in C's, which is the Persona 3 cast. So you weren't going to get Michelle Ruff, Liam O'Brien, Vic Mignogna. You weren't going to get, I'm forgetting a lot of other names because the actors and actresses over the years have changed, but Yuri Lowenthal, of course, as the protagonist, was not going to be the same, as well as Ryoji. But yeah, there was a lot of, I remember the day this got announced, but there was a lot of heat over this because people thought that this was just not going to work, this was not going to be good. And I think, I don't know, I think it ties back into that, more so the idea that it's just like, the focus around how nostalgia sort of has this, this grip on people, and how there are just some cases where people just can't accept things that are different or accept change, and it happens a lot of times. I think it happens more than we think. In fact, I would argue it's happened to me. I mean, for instance, I literally just said, hey, I prefer the original cutscenes over the newer ones because I'm nostalgic for them. So, well, at least the original Awakening. But you get my point. Is that it like, nostalgia can have a genuine hold on us, and it's just a matter of just like how you take it and how you act going forward. That's really the big kicker. And I think for a lot of people in that moment, like just them hearing the new actors and actresses, it was just like, it's almost like they realized, oh wait, no, maybe it's not them, maybe it's me. Because I mean, when I first heard the cast list, I was genuinely excited, and I was more than willing to give them a shot, because you have people like Alex Lee, you have people like Alejandro Saab, you have people like Zeno Robinson and Allegra Clark. You have all these different people who have been killing it in the voice acting game right now. Like, it's crazy, their talent and the skill. Like, I mean, like, Zeno Robinson right now is popping off with, has been popping off with, like, Jabber in, Gachiakuta. Like, he's really good in that as a performance. Like, he's selling as that character. But other than that, I mean, like, just so much talent has been put into this that it feels like, I mean, to quote Xander Mobus as Deadpool in the Team 4-star short, Deadpool vs. Cell, it's that just because I think it was just because you're the most likable doesn't mean that they're beholden. You gotta experiment, give someone else a shot, yeah? And I feel like that resonates, and I think it needs to be said louder for the people in the back, because when it comes to acting, when it comes to voice acting, like, I mean, yeah, there's that pessimistic, yeah, anybody can do your job, so on and so forth, and that's, in its own way, it's kind of disrespectful. It's disrespectful because, you know, like, it's wrong to say that, in my eyes, that, you know, anybody can just do your job. Even if there is some truth to that, it's just like, well, I mean, one, if you just hate the acting so much, why don't you fucking do it? Because there's a reason why I think a lot of people are more, like, accustomed to want to hear certain actors and actresses more than others in certain performances, and that's because in their mind, these specific actors and actresses just kill it and nobody else can replace them. But when you actually try to give, like, other people a shot, other people who have had, like, genuine talents, like, actual, like, history and a track record of being really good at their job, and you see how they take the character and do it in their own way, it's kind of eye-opening. It's kind of like the people who only listen to, like, English-only anime. And I know there are going to be some people like, well, I don't listen to English-only anime. Dude, yes, Dragon Ball, Cowboy Bebop, and even Naruto counts. Like chances are, if you've watched stuff like that, chances are you have only watched, you have watched English, and you most likely have only watched the English of those shows and whatnot. So when these series, essentially, like, when they continue on and when they get new titles and whatnot added to them, you hear the Japanese first, you get to hear what the voice initially just sounded like and how the dub has interpreted that and gone with their own directions in the over the years, essentially. And some people are one way or the other. Some people like hearing certain English dubs of stuff or English acting, and they don't like hearing other dialects and whatnot. Some people are the reverse, where they like the Japanese acting, they don't want to hear the English dialects, one way or the other, right? And there's also, in certain cases like this, where it's like you hear people who have heard the English acting previously remember it so fondly and everything, and then years pass and now we're getting a new cast of actors and actresses and so on that are actually, like, adding their own spin to the characters and doing their job. And it's like, now you see these people that are, like, kind of caught in that dilemma of their own, where it's like they like and they remember fondly about the original acting and everything, that when someone new comes along and quote unquote encroaches upon what they consider, you know, sacred or whatever, it's scary, it's strange, and they don't really know how to deal with it other than lashing out and rejecting it. And look where we are now. I mean, back when it first got announced, I've heard a lot of people were not open to it, but now, I mean, I haven't really heard too many people who actually hate the acting at all. I don't really hear too many people who actually hate the acting. Like, I know a lot of, and here's the thing, too. As someone who played Persona 3, I genuinely think the acting here is significantly better in Reload than it was in the original. And the reason why is because I think it comes back to the whole thing of nostalgia. I think it's the yes, the casting of Persona 3, like, they're not terrible for the most part. They're not terrible actors or actresses at their job. For the most part, it's just like, it doesn't make it like, but at the same time, it's just, it doesn't automatically make it good or better than anything else. It makes it nostalgic. And I also thought it was a nice little treat that some of the actors and actresses in previous like who previously were these characters were playing other NPCs like Liam O'Brien and Michelle Ruff and everything. If I recall correctly, I think like Tara Platt's the only one who really reprised her role. I think. And it was specifically for Elizabeth, because she played Mitsuru Kirijo. I cannot speak today. Mitsuru Kirijo and Elizabeth. And I think she only came back for Elizabeth. And I think the only reason for that why is because... I think the reason why is just because I think... in that, she was essentially like... I mean, Elizabeth was an adult, more supposed to be like an adult woman. And she could pull it off very well. She's been playing Elizabeth for years and doing a very good job at doing it, honestly. It's kind of like, I guess, I mean, if they were to bring back, I mean, they're doing a Persona 4 remake, for instance, right? And chances are, we gotta face facts that, yeah, the casting is going to be replaced. But if there is any chance that we could get, like, anybody back from the original, I would not be surprised if they brought back John Bosch specifically for characters like either Namatame or... I'm trying to think of any other like adult characters. Maybe Mr. Morinorca. Maybe him. Or, you know, maybe he'll reprise his role as Adachi. Because, I don't know, like his cadence and his ability to like play the naive aloof, I guess, but mask it for who he really is, I think is really good. I think he's Johnny Bosch is a really good actor. I think he's really good at his job, but yeah, it's undeniable that we are, most likely when Persona 4 remake comes out, that we are going to get a different casting across the board with the main characters, but either way. Overall, I think my point I'm trying to get here is that I like the Persona 3 Reload cast. I think they did a fantastic job. And yeah, I think that's pretty much just what I wanted to get by. Other than that, I mean, there was a number of differences. For instance, the music got some alterations. For one thing that impressed me the most was that the Iwatodai Dorm theme got actual like lyrics written by Lotus Juice and performed. Because I think in the original it was like, I think in the original they just used like pre-recorded what was it, like it was like some stock audio that they were like it's like it's something here, but I think it's like I think like Japanese like companies have come across like this this handful of like samples and other audio clips from like music that's English that is essentially like public domain art that they pay for, and they just use those samples, and they're at this point they're like archaic audio, and you hear it a lot when in a lot of different like when anime does like an OST and they have a song where it's just like they wanted to use like samples and everything. Very rarely do I think those studios or those companies ever pull from something specifically new. I think they just take from the collection of what they have and just use it. And I think Persona 3 back in the day was just no different. But now they have far more money and more budget than ever. And now I just feel like they have that free reign to where it's like if they ask Lotus Juice, hey, can you make some lyrics for this song or everything, they have not just the ability to, do that, and they have not just have the money to and everything, but they also have the capacity to, because that was a big thing back in the day, was memory capacity and storage. That was a big thing with the with video games back in the day, was like actual storage capacity and memory capacity. So that's why a lot of those, for instance, a lot of those tunes, in particular with Persona 3 specifically, a lot of those tunes were just looped. They were like maybe a minute 30 at most for most of them, right? Maybe. And they just got looped constantly. It was, and there was also a whole thing of compression. I'm not going to get into that. But now there's a lot more that they're capable of doing. This is why, for instance, Persona 5, I think, gets a lot more praise for its music. And I think a big part of that is because they can actually make full-length songs now. They can make full-length tracks and make full-length, just full-length pieces, just full-length musical pieces. Like, it's not simply just, hey, let's make like 30 to 40 seconds or a minute of just music and then let's loop it. No, it's a full song. It's like a full album. As opposed to what it was like just back in with the PS2 and everything. But yeah. So it's just interesting that they're taking, what they are capable of now and what they've learned and applying it to Persona 3 Reload, because I gotta be honest with you, some of the music in Persona 3 Reload that are remakes of the original soundtrack, I actually really do like. I love their new rendition of Changing Seasons. I love the new Iwatodai Dorm theme. I'm so-and-so on Last Surprise. I'm not gonna lie. I'm so-and-so on Last Surprise. I think it's just, I don't know if it's the actress, or not the actress, the vocalist, sorry. I don't know if it's the vocalist or if it's maybe the lack of effects that they're doing, because when you listen to the original I just said Last Surprise, didn't I? I'm talking about the music all the time, and I'm getting myself mixed up now. Mass Destruction. Mass Destruction is Persona 3's track. When it comes to Mass Destruction, I'm listening to it, and I'm just like, the original sounds better, and I was listening to it the other day, and I was like, they might have just, I think the deal is, I think they might have like added in like an echo or something. Like, it make it sound like there was like multiple people on the mic actually on the chorus and the vocalists and everything. Whereas with the remake and Reload, I think it's literally just direct audio. I don't think they really did much to actually like add any effect on the vocalist's voice, which is why in my mind I feel, I don't know, I've heard Mass Destruction quite a bit over the years, so maybe it's that, but I don't know, I just feel like, I don't know. That being said, I will never get on Lotus Juice, because Lotus Juice is a goddamn national treasure, and I will stand by that until the day I die. But I love that Lotus Juice not just came back for this, not just came back to, work for Persona, but also actually came back to make genuine, like, music alongside them. Not just, because I heard, I think in Persona 5 Tactics and so on, that I think that they wrote music for it. There might have been like one or two tracks that they performed and I just didn't notice, but I think they wrote music for it. But no, I wanted Lotus Juice on the mic, man. I wanted Lotus Juice on the mic, and I'm glad that they gave me that. But yeah, the music, for the most part, I like. I know a lot of people really enjoy Full Moon, Full Life, and what is the name of that one song? It's oh fuck, I'm forgetting the name. It's the song that plays at night. It's like, another water in the night, let me paint the view. Is it Color Your Night? It might be Color Your Night. Here, let me look it up. I have it just on my hard drive. Yeah, it's Color Your Night. Yeah, that song in particular, it's gotten very popular over the years, and oh yeah, years is a valid thing to say now because it's more than one, but yeah, it's gotten popular over the years. It's a very good song. It's a very good song. I really enjoy it. I like it, but I do like a lot of the other music in particular too. But anyway, I should probably move on from this. But there's also some other differences. The obvious one, of course, is the new engine for Persona 3, because they were, I mean, it's Persona 5's engine that they're working with, yeah. But yeah, it looks very beautiful, pretty much, and I love some of the stuff that they added in, stuff even at the beginning, how they did the prologue and the intro and everything. I like that. I also like the added scenes with characters like Strega and whatnot. I like some of the additions to stuff like the social links. I like the fact that the guys all have their the guys pretty much all have their own like social links that aren't really restricted to, hey, you need to have like this particular stat raised up. I love that significantly more than what they do normally. I like that they added in a rejection feature for the social links in this, where you don't, because that was something that was like not in Persona 3 initially. You couldn't reject when characters, particularly girls, actually were in love with you. It just happened. So I think them adding that option for it's like you can just be friends and adding in a different ending altogether for them, I think is nice. I think that's really good. And part of me really wishes that we would have, I don't know, maybe they just want to get rid of the reverse and break aspects of social links, but I don't know, personally I thought, especially in 3, I liked it because it, interestingly enough, it made it feel like these NPCs were kind of like their own people. Whereas if you remove it, it just kind of feels like it's lacking. Like, I could kind of understand in 5 because there were so many, but in 3, I mean, them introducing the aspect, and I mean, the way, like, you don't hang out with them too much, or you cancel plans with them, more or less, can really affect the different social links and whatnot, and reverse or break them. That can happen. That can absolutely happen. But overall, I mean, I don't know, I miss it because it felt like there was a risk regarding like what you say, or I don't know, how you treated the people you were supposed to be friends with and everything. And when I played Persona 3 Reload, if that feature was still in Persona 3 Reload, you could have fooled me, because it was so much harder to actually break off friends in this, or have the social links reverse in any way. It was hard. Like, I had one character that I just was not seeing at all throughout the entirety of the game, and at no point did it like reverse or break. And I did that because I wanted to see if it was at all possible. But it never came. So my thought process is, I don't know, if it is in the game, it must be like you have to do something specific to trigger it. But if it's not in the game, it would not surprise me. It wouldn't. I wouldn't really be all that taken aback if it wasn't in the game, and it just adds to the whole thing of like, I don't know. I like when stuff like the social links actually do have consequences for like not doing them, or sort of, I don't know what's the word. You get the point I'm going for. You get the point I'm going for. I like when there is sort of a drawback or a consequence. Essentially, but that's just me. Other than that, I mean, like, again, the added stuff that they had with people like Strega, I think is really good. I think some of the scenes that they've added actually really goes to really showcase these guys as a like genuine villain organization and whatnot. There are things where I feel I'm still torn on whether or not they wanted to add it, because, well, I mean, I'm a fan of the original, similar to Final Fantasy VII. It's kind of in that same ballpark with like Avalanche and Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's in the same ballpark here with Shinjiro in Persona 3 Reload, where it's like, I'm real glad that they're doing all this extra stuff for this character that we barely spend much time on, but I've played the game before and beaten it. I know how the story goes. This is, I don't know, sometimes this stuff just feels emotionally manipulative, just to get you to like care about the characters before the inevitable happens. No. And how I felt about it with Avalanche in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and how I feel about it with Shinjiro in Persona 3 Reload, is like, it's 1-to-1, honestly. I like that, I don't know, I feel like if they had added the option where it's like you could prevent what happens originally, you know? If you could prevent what happens originally and the story sort of breaking off and going in its own direction from there, like, you know, you definitely meet the same end overall, but it's just like a different route to take on the way to the same end goal. I think that it could actually, like, I think that it could genuinely be worthwhile. I think it could have added to the experience. But no. At least that's, I don't know, maybe there is, and it's just like, yeah, I have to jump through more and more hoops in a New Game Plus for it to happen, but, yeah, when I played it, I didn't see it. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, like, that brings it up to another thing, in my eyes, and that is sort of the new designs for the characters. So, I do have a bit of a gripe with this one. Not because of the game specifically or even the characters. It's the fandom. So, a while back, I think I've told this story. I was excited to see Persona 3 Reload, and some asshole in a server was like, hey, these are the new outfits for the characters. Oh man, they're getting their own Phantom Thief attire, which I fucking hate that idea, is that every character has to get a quote-unquote, like, rip-off of what Persona 5 was doing. In reality, it was like, and what I love with this story, though, is that it was nothing like that. Because that was actual, like, because in the story, the stuff that they get is armor. It's armor, it's actual, like, gear for fighting, which I really dig on. I think it's a similar, like, change into what they kind of did for 5, but it's distinctly its own thing. That's what I love the most, is when they add in these gimmicks and new additions to the stories and whatnot, but they're additions that feel distinctly its own. That's what I love the most about it. But yeah, this one asshole in a server I was in once. I don't even know if I'm still in it. I probably am not. But yeah, this one asshole was just like, oh man, like they're getting more Fantasy Star, and this was like before I even bothered to like get the game or anything. It was before it was even out, and Atlas was sort of showing trailer footage and whatnot. And like I was trying my best to avoid any spoilers or anything new. And this dude shows it unspoilered into a general chat, not even like opening up a thread or anything, just a general chat, and I and a bunch of other people as well just got kind of spoiled for it, and I was just like, oh yeah, thanks for spoiling a game I was trying to not get spoiled on. It's just, and he was being such a petty bitch about it. It's just like, okay, this is a PSA for anybody in whoever spends time in Discord. If you come across anything that's relatively new, right? If you come across anything that looks good and everything, just fucking tag it with spoilers, dude. Like, just because you don't care about spoilers doesn't mean the same for everyone else. And just because you think that everyone knows what's going to happen doesn't automatically mean that that is the case. Fucking cover your ass sometimes, you know? But yeah, that's my only gripe, but that's outside the actual costumes. In regards to the actual costumes themselves, I love them. I genuinely love these different designs for the characters. I think it breathes new life into characters that were like 16-year-old characters at this point. In 2023, or wait, 16 or 17? I think it's 17 or 18. Characters that are like, at this point, like a generation's worth of age. That it just breathes more life into that, and it makes it feel, you know, refreshing, but not completely like. It just feels refreshing, I guess. It's just the word I'm trying to go for. But I really like the new designs for the characters. I like the different like the fact that it just now comes with not just comes with different armor, but also comes with different weapons too. I like that. I also noticed that there were some things where it's like they changed it up. For instance, the combat. I noticed, like, for instance, what were they called? Fusion spells. Yeah, fusion spells in 3 and 4. Yeah, they're essentially this game's version of the Showtime stuff that you could do in Persona 5 Royal and Strikers. It's just another ultimate. It's basically limit breaks from Final Fantasy. And I'm not opposed to it, but I think the major problem out the gate I have with these supers, right? I think they're called Thurgies, if I recall correctly. I'm thinking Synergy, but that doesn't sound. Yeah, I think it's Thurgy. The problem I have with the Thurgies is not that you're giving your characters their own ultimates. It's that they are consequenceless. What I mean by that is that, you know, if a character is weak to wind, right? I understand, you know, pulling out a Thurgy and it, you know, the character being weak to wind, or the enemy being weak to wind, you know, getting affected greatly by that. That's fine. But if an enemy can reflect wind, why does my Thurgy just go right through it? It feels like it feels game-breaking, but not in a fun way. It feels game-breaking in a, we just want this shit to be over with quicker way. I think it's a big part of why, as I was starting to play, the combat genuinely started to get boring to me. And that was because they gave me a lol I win button. That was what I hated about Persona 3 Reload's combat probably the most. Is that the game felt imbalanced, but not necessarily in favor of the computers, in favor of the AI. It felt imbalanced in favor of the player, and that's the thing I hate most, especially near the beginning and everything, is that Like, you know, make the game as broken as you want for the characters, but you also have to set up, like, in my eyes, a genuine challenge. You have to set up, like, roadblocks and hiccups for characters to sort of, you know, fall victim to, so that, you know, they're not just, like, brute forcing everything. And I've made this point too as well, but one of the biggest problems I have with the combat, or just Persona 3 Reload in general, is that the difficulty. And I know some people are going to be like, well, I mean, Persona 3 Reload's not meant to be a difficult game, which, fine. That's fine. I understand that. Look, I play Pokemon. I get if you don't want things to be difficult. But my biggest problem with that, why are there like 4 or 5 other difficulty levels, you know? It's like they got the safe one that lets you just start over if you die without any real consequences or anything. They have an easy one, they have a normal one, they have a hard one, and they have a merciless one. And from what I have looked into, and from what I've tried out, all this does, aside from the obvious, is... Oh. Like, you're going against an enemy? Well, they have amplified attack, they have more health, and your hit to miss ratio is weighted more in the miss aspect. Okay. Anything else? Is there anything else? Like, aside from some little things, right? Like, I mean, like, the higher you go, more or less, it's, I think it becomes less easier in the sense of, like, oh, well, you have to restart from, like, when you first entered Tartarus, right? Like, okay, that's a decent take. I don't mind that. But, okay, let me break this down to people who have never played Persona 3 or Persona 3 FES, right? Let's just keep this to FES, because I think that's the one everyone has played the most, right? In FES, there's a limit to how many times you can go into Tartarus. And I know some people are thinking, oh yeah, there's a limit to how many times you can battle and everything in Tartarus, but like there's those clocks that regenerate your energy and everything. You have enough Twilight Fragments, you can just exchange them to restore your HP and SP, and it's like, that didn't exist in FES. That didn't exist. In fact, it was harder. Characters are capable of becoming fatigued. And there will be certain cases where characters are just incapable of actually being involved because of that. Maybe some of them will just be sick or not feeling well, and they will not be up to par for playing, or not playing, sorry, like being in battle and everything. So that hinders, you know, what you have for weaknesses and strengths in a team up. And so you have to like think about, all right, who do I take next? What have I seen on this floor, and who is best suited to it in substitute and everything? Like, it made you more or less feel like your teammates, you know, they weren't just, you know, just random AI computers that you had control over. Quite the opposite, actually. The biggest change in this is that they carried over the thing that they were doing in Persona 4, which was that you could control the individual characters. Whereas in Persona 3 FES, they were AI. You had to get used to either handling it by yourself or like commanding other units to, you know, assign certain roles, which I thought was a very good usage of the AI system. And that's something I think that's fallen to the wayside, especially over the years, because everyone's just gotten accustomed to controlling whoever. And, you know, you can do that too. You can do that fine, but again, it's that whole thing. It comes back to the whole thing of difficulty. In that the game really feels like it's favored too much in one way. It feels, not necessarily like in a way where it feels like you can, you know, it's challenging, but you can succeed. It tests your intellect, it tests your skill, it tests your problem solving. Because that's what I like most about, like, Metaphor, for instance. I like that it has me test my problem solving. You have to deal with enemies in this particular time of the day. You have to deal with enemies with this particular skill set. You have to deal with enemies with these particular patterns. And you have to be able to solve the problem. Metaphor, even when it's easier, tests me in terms of my skills, my understanding of the game, and an understanding of my teammates, and understanding of what I brought into battle at that moment. And that's why I think I favor Metaphor's combat more over Persona's in a lot of way. And personally, why I consider it Persona 6 is because it feels like just a better version of, in my eyes, whatever Atlas is going to release with Persona 6. But, I mean, with Persona 3, the biggest problem, again, I would probably, okay. I've been pointing the finger on the whole to, I think, the system. Let's talk about, like, individually for enemy agency. The problem I have with Persona 3 Reload's combat is not necessarily that there are all these different, like, designs for all these different enemies and whatnot, but more so that they don't really have much that actually makes them different in terms of fights. Like, anytime I go into battle, right? Anytime I go into battle and take on shadows, right? 9 times out of 10, it's just, hey, exploit the weaknesses. That's it. That's it. That's all there is to it. But if it's something like a mid-level boss, or if it's something like a full moon boss, right? A lot of the times, I'm looking at this like, okay, how do I do this? I can't just exploit their weaknesses. These enemies are switching that around. These enemies are making it harder to hit them. I have to actually strategize. I actually have to solve the problem here. I like that. I like that the, like, actual bosses in the game genuinely challenge you. But the problem I have with that is that it's just the bosses that are challenging you. That's it. The game is not preparing you outside of that in any way, really shape or form outside of, hey, exploit the weaknesses, bring the right team members. That's all it's doing. That's all it's doing. Like, for instance, right, one of the full moon bosses switches their weaknesses, right? And that's a new mechanic. That's a new mechanic you have to deal with. What if there was an enemy afterwards, or what if enemies afterwards were capable of doing that? It introduced a mechanic that you have to deal with, and enemies you fought in Tartarus were capable of doing that. They were capable of either erasing or rearranging their weaknesses and strengths. Or hell, maybe the persona you were using, it rearranges its weaknesses and strengths. Like, if it was more capable around doing that, I think it would be a more interesting combat system. Because it's taking into account, like, what is put at, the tools that are put at your disposal, as well as what you have experienced, and essentially putting it back up here is just like, alright, that was an introduction after you beat that boss. Now you have to deal with it in normal enemies. And yeah, I know people are going to say, that sounds a little too hard, I don't really want to sweat. But, again, I walk it back to the difficulty and why there's like 4 to 5 difficulty levels. You know? This kind of stuff I'm talking about, you save for the higher difficulties. If you want an easier time at the game, the way it is right now, you put that in the easier section. That way, anybody who wants an easier time at the game can have that. That's perfectly fine. I'm not getting on anybody for, like, I want an easier time with my Persona game. That's perfectly fine. But I'm just saying, if you're adding in, why go to the trouble of adding in extra difficulties if all you do for everything after easy and whatnot is the bare minimum? You know? It's like, okay. As much as I don't really enjoy the game anymore, I will admit there was a point in time where I think something like Honkai Star Rail actually got it right. Because it got the enemy agency aspect right, because In the tutorial level of that game, you are introduced to a bunch of space demons or whatever, right? All of them have these different appearances and looks and designs to them. Cool. But all those different appearances and designs have a skill set to them. There's like floating gray guys that will lock on to certain allies. That means that whatever ally they decide to lock onto, all the other enemies are gonna charge at that specific teammate, and you have to be able to either protect them or try to figure out how to take out the other enemies before any of that becomes a problem, so on and so forth, right? That's essentially what's going on. There's like these little orb enemies, these little blue orb enemies, and they fire like one beam. There are these darker enemies with blades, and they can attack one enemy, but they can also attack 3 enemies. And there's this one enemy, this darker enemy with a gun, and he can attack one enemy 3 times or just reload. But even in the tutorial, there are 4 enemies right out the gate that are telling you what they are capable of, what their, you know, their skill set is, and how they look. And you immediately can tell from that information, okay, this is what I need to focus on, this is what I need to deal with, and this is, you know, like, who do I impair first, who do I take down first, who do I, like, you get my point, right? Is that this is the thing I just don't really like about Persona's enemy agency, is that for the most part, enemies don't really have an agency. You can literally replace them with blender spheres and just color them differently, and it wouldn't really matter. The only thing that makes them different is the design, really, and that's kind of it. And yeah, there are some weaknesses, like differentiating, but for the most part, that's it. There's not really much actual agency to the enemies. No. It just pisses me off when a game like this tries to incorporate more difficulties, like bigger difficulties, and try to advertise itself as like, oh yeah, this is like the harder difficulty in the game, and you'll like genuinely need to be on your toes for this, and it's very brain dead. It's like, yeah, sure, you might have a higher chance of losing, but it always seems less like, oh, you were stupid, and the AI was smarter than you, and more, you just got one shot and overpowered, and that's kind of it. And to me, that's not, I don't know, that's not really fun. It's not like, for example, a Souls, like, where, yeah, that can happen, but you also have the ability to dodge and whatnot, and in this, it's a turn-based strategy game where you just kind of have to increase your accuracy and hope that on RNG it misses. And I guess there's some enjoyment to have over that, but when you are, and this will happen, when you are over-leveling everything because you're capable of pulling off an ultimate that does, like, almighty damage regardless, and on top of, like, exploiting weaknesses and whatnot, there's no real fun. Like, I remember when the Reaper was a genuinely, like, scary boss to go against. I remember when it was, like, so fucking terrifying to actually go against the Reaper and everything, especially when you had other teammates. And now, I mean, by the end of the game, there's not really much to, there's not really much to actually, like, there's not really much to be worried about, because you have all these different ultimates and so on. I mean, yeah, you might die, but it's not anything in comparison to how it used to be with Persona 3. Hell, it's not even anything like how it used to be with, like, Persona 5 before they gave you Izanagi no Okami, which just cheesed the entire game, and I guess also I guess there was also the flu season, which, you know, the Reaper there was a glitch where the Reaper just succumbed to that shit, but yeah, I mean, like, my point is that the game really just felt like it got easier. It really did. It feels like it got easier. Okay, if you genuinely think that I am pulling the shit out of my ass, right? If you think that I'm just completely like, oh man, you're just like this isn't really, it's difficult. Maybe you should give it another shot or anything. Here's what I want you to do. If you genuinely do not think what I'm saying holds any water or anything, I don't care if it's emulation or if you have a copy of it. What I want you to do is play Persona 3 FES on the PS2, right? And then what I want you to do is play it on the hardest difficulty. Play it on the hardest difficulty and tell me, like, from beginning to end, tell me how that experience goes. And then what I want you to do is, after that, I want you to play Persona 3 Reload on the hardest difficulty and tell me how that experience goes. Hell, play both games on the easiest difficulty. Play both games on the normal difficulty. Tell me how that experience goes. Because I guarantee you, like, what I've been saying here about the difficulty on some level is going to hit. Now, granted, yeah, I do think that Persona 3 FES, even back then, does have a problem with enemy agency, but for me, what leveled it out most in regards to that enemy agency was that it was very easy to fuck up in that game. It was very easy to fuck up in that game. If you get too cocky or too full of yourself, you can easily eat shit. It's very fucking easy to fuck up in that game and have to restart from the beginning, because yeah, unlike this, there was no, like, actual, like, there wasn't really any, like, save points or anything. There wasn't any point where it's like, oh yeah, you can start from the beginning, and then you're not sorry, what I mean, it's like you can go back to the beginning and then you can go back to exactly where you started. No, or where you left off. Sorry, no, it wasn't anything like that. No. What happened was essentially, if you found a teleporter at any point in the game, it would teleport you back to the starting point, but you have to go back to the highest floor you were at that point in time. And usually at that point in time, it is the floor where a full teleporter that could get you from there to the beginning and vice versa. Any random teleporter on any floor doesn't really have the opportunity to take you back to exactly where you were. Yeah. But I don't know. The combat itself, I mean, like, look, I like the idea of these different characters getting ultimates and everything, don't get me wrong, but I really feel like if you're going down that route, the games going forward need to be rebalanced. The games going forward need to be rebalanced in favor of the, you know, the enemy side, because you're giving the players all these different options and all these different possibilities, but you're doing nothing for the AI. The game is going to just become, in my eyes, the game is just going to become boring. It's the One Punch Man problem of having overwhelming strength is actually pretty boring. I've said my piece about this, and I've talked in detail about it, but my biggest problem here is that I don't really hate the combat, and I don't hate what they're overall kind of attempting. I hate the fact that it just seems like could be more you do with this. There could be more. Hell, there could be more you could update the game to have. That's which doesn't a realm, and I'm gonna get to that in a bit, but anyway, I want to move on from this. I think I made my point about the combat clear, but other than that, there's also some quality of life updates that I vibe with. I mean, there were some things I did really enjoy, and some things where it's just like, I kind of wish this was back. Like, again, I brought up the fatigue system from the original Persona 3 that got removed entirely. I thought it was kind of a shame because just, I mean, there wasn't, aside from Twilight Fragments, which is another thing, it didn't really stop me from like just completing some of these runs in one night. Really, there wasn't really anything stopping me. But yeah, that's another thing. Twilight Fragments, pretty much you get them for like exploring the open world, exploring Tartarus, and even doing some things for Elizabeth. And yeah, I mean, they essentially mainly just exist to restore your health and stamina, and yeah, I think they also exist to like I think if you have enough, you could also like level up your other characters if they have been disregarded, which I think is kind of neat. I don't know. I think it's kind of neat. I don't really mind it all too much. There's the, I guess I guess the like the special doors in Reload, which give you a special boss, which is I mean, that adds more to my combat about how enemies have like a higher health bar, but they don't really hit all that hard. It's just a longer battle at some points. Anyway. Yeah, there's other than that, there's like, I don't know, it's I think I've talked about some already, just kind of inadvertently talked about some quality of life updates. I like the I'm trying to think. I guess they were just called hangout events with some of the dorm members and everything. I like the added moments, whether they were taken by Portable or just added. I think some of these were actually taken from the anime, even the anime movies. But I like it. I like it. I like the different little hangout events you have with everybody and everything. I like that, you know, because of that, you know, some of the characters that you hang out with, they actually get like special little bonuses, like, hey, anytime they activate their third G, like this happens, or, you know, their build up for getting third G is decreased in these ways here or there. I like it. I don't mind it. There's also, you know, there's some dialogue changes every so often. I'm not too, like, I don't have Persona 3 Reload's dialogue, like, script and everything like, it's just in my head, burned into my head, compared to Persona 3 FES's. I don't even have that burned in my head, but I know that there are some changes. For instance, one of the biggest changes that in currently I don't really have a problem with, and I don't really know who actually has a problem with it. I mean, it's the whole you're on the beach and there's initially the joke was, oh, it's quote unquote a girl, but it's actually a guy. And in this, it's like a woman trying to sell you, I think, some product or whatever. I don't really know anybody who has a problem with that. I mean, some people probably do, but they're weird. But yeah. Other than that, yeah, I think I don't really have much of a. I like a lot of the quality of life updates. I like hanging out with Koromaru more. I like the amount of time they gave to Shinjiro. I like the amount of time they let you have with characters like Akihiko and Junpei. I like stuff like that. I wish there was more moments like that. I wish there were more moments like that. I wish there were more moments, especially with like Junpei and Chidori. I wish there were more moments with them together because I love their relationship. But yeah. Other than that, I mean, overall, the story on the whole is really just Persona 3 and the answer. And I like both of them. Oh, speaking of, I guess we can also talk about the answer. Yeah, for years, this has been a big controversial addition to Persona 3. I have seen people go to hell and high waters trying to treat this like the redheaded stepchild of the series. People saying that it's not canon, people saying that it spits in the face of what the original ending is, people saying that it hurts Yukari's character, people saying so on and so forth. And yeah, I think this is a big problem of when I'm talking about this, I'm kind of glad that I decided to do this alone. Because it's one of those things where I feel I want to get my... This is one of those things where I feel I want to get my voice out there before, because the one thing that happens in this is when this kind of thing happens is that, like, as much as I enjoy having my friends around and everything, it can... I mean, they're my friends. I mean, it can feel like we agree a little too much on certain things altogether every so often, and in this, I wanted to get my opinions out first and foremost before, like, just kind of relaying a lot of stuff that I'm talking about to them, because I feel like what I want to say here is something that I feel should come from my heart and what I feel, as opposed to something that's accumulated from discussing and talking from other people, because that just happens sometimes. And, you know, it's not their fault or anything. It's very much a case of just, like, you know, you hang out with enough people at certain points, you know, like, what they say can really just start influencing you and everything. Which isn't good or bad or anything, it's just, it just is. But my point is I just wanted to get my thoughts out here first and foremost, and then anytime I frequent this, then start talking about it with other people, you know what I mean? But my thought process is this, I think a lot of the people, specifically who are hating on characters like Yukari, or even just the answer in general, for the most part, I can see where they're coming from, but in a lot of ways, I think a lot of those people who just hate this story, I'm gonna be real here, they've never had to either deal with grief, or they have, and they're oblivious to the actual subject matter and what it exactly means. Because here's the thing, the answer, or episode I guess, which is now being called, it was initially called in Japan, but now I think they're just pushing that overall. But the answer, episode I guess, is a focus around the characters grieving over the loss of someone that they knew. And the thing about grief and the process of it is that it's not one-to-one the same with everybody. If you think it is, chances are, either you're going from your own personal experiences, or, and let's be real here, you're going by what you probably saw on TV or fiction and media, right? And let's be real here, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with admitting it. Because, hey, you know, it's just, you hear about death quite a bit. Sometimes you just don't see it. You don't really come face to face with it until it happens, and you know how you react. It's not always going to be the same as everybody else. You know? Death is a very complicated matter for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to talk about that. Hell, I imagine there are probably people who don't like this game because they don't like the concept of death. They don't like it being shoved in their face, and I get it. I understand. Personally for me though, I respect media that tries to take a concept as empathetic and something that affects all of us eventually, like death, and giving it the treatment it so rightfully deserves. And in a lot of ways, I feel what Persona 3 has attempted with that, with the epilogue, I think it was a success. Because here's the thing, and so just going down the list, a lot of people are pissed. A lot of people that I've heard say this isn't really canon or anything, or this ruins the sanctity of what they were initially trying to do, or what the main character was trying to do. Here's the thing. Even regarding the player, nobody actually knew what the main character did. Nobody did. Nobody actually did. We knew that he went up against Nyx, but that's it. We don't actually see what happened. And even then, regarding the ending until the epilogue, it's very unclear as to what exactly happened to him. All it is just possibly, it's alluding to the fact that he possibly had died. But at the same time, you could also argue that he might have just, like, I don't know, maybe he just fell asleep or fell into a coma. But the epilogue, no, it confirms that he's dead. It is very confirmed that he's dead. And I think the thing people sort of give this shit for is, it's a mixture of things. In their defense, I think it's a mixture of things. I don't think this is coming from nowhere. I think a part of it is unfortunately, the part that I will admit I don't like either. It is the Civil War aspect. What I mean by that, it's the part where you are kind of encouraged to fight everybody to see how the ending plays out and everything. And yeah, I will admit, even in Reload, this is kind of dragged out. This is not even dragged out, this is just kind of... It doesn't feel like this was worth it. It doesn't feel like this was needed, the thing. That's what I don't really like about this whole, like, we have to fight one another for our keys and everything in the answer. I don't know, it feels like this could have been done differently, it could have been done a different way. And I think part of that, next to, especially in the original, how Yukari was, a lot of people really didn't like her. A lot of people didn't like her because she was incredibly, like... She was more unlikable in this as opposed to in the original, and here it's like she is very more stubborn and more rude and more... A lot of people don't like her take, but... And this is just how I see it. I think that's the point. I think that's the point. I think the point of it is, like, everybody is taking the death of the main character, the protagonist in the story, differently in their own ways. And for Yukari, from the get-go, that is her way of taking it. In the beginning, she is nowhere to be found in the dorm because she's gone. She's not even bothering. Like, she left her evoker and everything there. She doesn't want anything to do with being around it. She just kind of wants to be alone. In her own way, she's in denial about the death of the protagonist and not coming face to face with that. When she's dragged back and everything, she's a lot more angrier. She's a lot more sort of fed up with everything. Because, well, one, she got dragged back, but two, she has to come back to the place that constantly makes her remember of the person that she, you know, you could say love, but also you could say, like, respect it as a friend as well. Either one is fine. But the person that she knew for a long time and just for the majority of the year, and just that person who just died for no clear reason to her. Because mind you, again, they don't know what happened in the last battle with Nyx. All they knew was he flew away to Nyx, somehow saved the day, and they lost their memories until they regained it, and then he just died. Yeah, if we're going by that, it's just like, what do you take with that? Even some of the other characters, like Ken, if you notice, he also doesn't know. He's questioning it. So it's like, why did he have to die? We don't know what happened to him. Why did he have to die? Why did he have to be the one to die? What happened to him? Like, they don't know. They don't really know. We have some inkling of understanding because we're the player. We know he went up against Nyx. We know he activated something called the Great Seal, but we don't necessarily know full on exactly what that was. All we know is it's like a seal of some sort to seal away Nyx, but seal Nyx away for what? You know what I mean? And as the story goes on, it eventually gets to the point where they all get every character gets their own keys. And by the way, if you're wondering why I'm specifically going to the answer, it's because Persona 3 is a story that has been talked about a lot. And yeah, relatively, like, I mean, the answer in this is sort of a DLC, and the thing about it is, like, a lot of people are really getting on the DLC and thinks it's bad for a number of reasons. But I'm gonna finish off this entire podcast episode with talking about that whole elephant in the room and everything. But the answer in particular is a DLC story that closes everything, and, you know, when you buy the game, you might be, you know, questioning whether or not you should get the answer. So I'm just here to tell you. But more or less, right? The story more or less focuses on, like, everybody gets, eventually they get their own key, and when it combines, what they are given a choice, essentially, to grant one wish. And essentially the case here is, like, we can either, like, you know, restore time to as it is normally, or we could possibly, if anything, go back to seeing the person that, you know, was our closest comrade one more time. But in order to do that, that would result in just going back to that moment in time. It wouldn't result in, like, things possibly being different or anything. It just results in you just going back to that time necessarily. And going back in that time means you would have to defeat something that is, like, the very thing that they narrowly escaped out of once, and it's not necessarily guaranteed whether or not they'll be able to get through it again. Yukari in this wants to see the protagonist one more time. And everybody else, though, for the most part, is fine with just kind of moving forward, because respectfully, they think that, you know, letting the protagonist just rest and everything is more respectful than it is to just bring him back. Whereas Yukari is more in the camp of, like, I want to see him again because, you know, I don't like the idea that he just kind of, it feels like he just kind of died and nobody seems to care about him. And the thing about what I like most about this subject is that it's not, here's the thing, nobody is the enemy here. Nobody is in the right or wrong. I don't care what anyone says or how anyone wants to push it. Nobody in this group is in the right or wrong. The reason for that being is because it's a subject of, if you had a chance to see your loved ones again, regardless, would you want to? That is a multi-layered question. That's a question that not everybody's going to give the exact same answer to. Some people will say yes, some people will say no, some people will probably not be able to give an answer. It's a question that is it has a various amounts of answers. It's all dependent on the person. So when I hear people treating it like this is, you know, like Yukari is a bad person and everything, it feels very dismissive in my eyes regarding, like, the very subject itself. Whether or not the people in question have actually experienced it or anything, it feels incredibly dismissive. But yeah, that's my point on that. But overall, my thoughts on the answer, like, and that was pretty much my biggest gripe with it, is that, especially in the end, like, because here's the thing, like, everybody on the whole seems to not really know the answer of what happened to the protagonist, when they realize the answer and realize what exactly he did that day that they were fighting Nyx, all of them got closure. They knew what his sacrifice had led to, and they realized, all of them, that, yeah, if we just decide to see him again, it feels like he's just not going to... It just feels like everything that he had done would have been in vain, and the idea of just, like, him watching over all of us, kind of nice in a bittersweet way. Now, I don't think anybody who plays Royal, or Royal, anybody who plays Reload now will probably see her in a horrible way, and that's mainly because you have the more toned down version in Reload, because Yukari and the rest of the writing is very more, it's changed around to, I think, be better suited to a more modern audience in terms of them getting it, because Yukari, look at Yukari in the original. She's a lot more, well, I think to quote Super Butter Buns, how do you like your Yukari, hard or soft-boiled? But yeah. But my thoughts on the answer, aside from the character in question, that being Metis, for the most part, I think Answer as a story is very interesting. I think Answer as a story is very interesting. I like it in terms of it being like the characters get closure on the very question that they have been wondering and been going without an answer for this entire time. Now that said, a lot of the problems I've had with the combat in Persona 3 Reload, they are amplified here. So much of this game it's so boring. So much of this game mode is so boring. It does not feel fun to play through. It doesn't until you, big surprise, until you get to some of the bosses, and even the last few fights between your teammates and everything, and even the final boss in the answer. But yeah, it's, if you were to ask me, hey, should I get the answer for Persona 3 Reload? I would probably say, like, I would say, if nothing else, watch the cutscenes in the entirety, get your understanding of it, and then make up your own conclusion about, just the story itself without really trying to adhere to what one other person says, you know? Like, okay, just because I am in defense of the answer doesn't automatically mean the same for everybody else. Like, by all means, make up your own mind about the actual story itself. Don't constantly let other people's opinions be your own. Don't take what everyone else says as gospel. Don't let other people just influence you to the point where your own voice just is thrown to the wayside. If you like or dislike something, right, and you have your own personal reasons as to why, like, be more than willing to voice them, but it goes both ways too. Just because, you know, you have your own voice and everything, it doesn't automatically mean that me or anyone else should have to ultimately just agree with you verbatim, you know? Like, yeah, look, I have voiced my opinions about people who have, like, hated Yukari and whatnot in the answer, but that doesn't automatically mean that I think that everyone should listen to what I say and they should ultimately just agree because my word is law or anything. No. You should agree because you want to. Because you should agree because it's what you genuinely think. Like, you should agree because deep down you do agree with what I or anyone else says. And you should disagree not because, you know, like, you should disagree not because, like, oh, like, I'm saying something that's against what you think necessarily. Like, you should disagree if you see it in a different light than what someone else does, but not disagree because someone likes something you don't like. If you see it in a different light, you know, you can disagree and explain it and everything. It's, by all means, you should at least be old enough to make your own decisions when it comes to video games. Which I think, regarding the answer in regards to Reload, I think it's time I talk about the elephant in the room. So, the answer, in episode, I guess, for the longest time when FES came out, it got shit. And the reason for that being it was widely hated because of what I just said, because of, well, for one, the gameplay. It was mainly just, it was harder than the original, and the common thing I've heard people say is like, yeah, I've played the answer, I never beaten it, but I played it. But other than that, a lot of people don't like Yukari in the answer initially. A lot of people, there are people that think it's not canon because it spits in the face of Persona 3, so on and so forth, yada yada yada. Now, that very story has come to Persona 3 Reload, and a lot of people hate it. Mainly, and from what I have seen, it's mainly because they hate that it's DLC. They hate that it's an expansion DLC that came separate with the game. And I want to talk about that. So I've said this on record that Persona 3 Reload was the last game that I was going to buy. And the reason for that being is because I was sick and tired of Atlus's practices. To those who don't remember, to those who were not old enough to remember, Atlus used to re-release or add in newer games and whatnot, or newer tie-ins to games, so on and so forth, that were basically the original game with some adjustments and updates and changes that felt like a definitive version. So keeping it in line with Persona, right? Persona 3 comes out with Persona 3 FES, and to an extent Persona 3 Portable. Like, either one, both were considered like, oh, this is like the definitive version of the game, right? Now, the thing about it was, unlike in current day, Persona 3 FES came out on a physical disc on the PS2. Now, I don't know how many people these days will remember that. Probably a lot more, considering the PS2 is fucking goated as a console. But the PS2, it wasn't a digital console like we have nowadays. There was no like PlayStation Store or anything back then. I mean, there probably was, but not to this extent. Not to the extent that we have today, or even back with the PS3. It was not to this extent. Whatever was on the disc of a PlayStation 2 or any other console at that point back in the day, right? That was pretty much it. That's it. It was all you got. So if there was any updates or any changes, you couldn't just, hey, let's turn on the internet to our PS2 and update it. No, you had to get another physical copy of the game, for better or for worse. This happened with Kingdom Hearts, and this happened with Persona. Persona 3 FES came out sometime after Persona 3, I think a couple years or so, and it was charged, I think, relatively the same price for Persona 3 back in the day. And yeah, I think even back in the day it sucked, don't get me wrong, but again, I think a lot of people were willing to let it slide on some level because we weren't in the age of, hey, we can update our games and we can add in DLC and expansion passes and so on. We weren't in that age yet. We weren't. So it just, the idea itself had just, I don't really think had been really approached. It hadn't really been touched on. So what were we gonna do? And then Persona 4 comes out. And you know, that it was at the end of the life for the PS2, more or less, I think. But some years later, Persona 4 Golden comes out, and I think on some level to avoid what they were doing with Persona 3, what they decided to do with Golden is initially to release it on the Vita, which I think I think it gave more benefit of the doubt to it on a another console. Is that you know, it's an entirely different system. It's a system that a lot of people at that point in time didn't really have, because let's be real here, as no, some people will say that they do like the PS Vita. It never was able to top the PlayStation Portable. Let's be real here. Let's be real. It's never gonna top the PlayStation Portable. I don't even know why I'm saying let's be real, because I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with me on this. But the Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 Golden released on the PlayStation Vita, which I think was one of the only reasons why people bought a Vita. Like, I mean, there was Gravity Rush, which that was a fun game, and that so much so that I got a sequel. So yeah, I think plenty of people bought a PS Vita, but it's just like, yeah, it being available on Vita exclusively and whatnot, that gave people the incentive to buy a PlayStation Vita if they already were a fan of Persona. So there's that. And, you know, it was... I think in and of itself, that is a decent, like, that's a valid thing to have an argument over whether or not it was worth the purchase or not. I think so. And I think it's a valid argument whether or not it was worth the re-release too. You know, it's an entirely different generation than the PlayStation 2. It's an entirely different system than the PlayStation 2 altogether. Like, yeah, that was the way it was. And then some time passes, right? End of the PlayStation 3's life, rival, or not necessarily the rival, but the definite like continuation of the PlayStation 4. Persona 5 comes out. And later on the PlayStation 4, near 2020 and whatnot, in comes Persona 5 Royal. And this is where I feel that in and of itself, like that whole re-releasing a game for the same price and everything, I feel this is where it like really had its biggest, like, no, this sucks. It felt like a scam here, because at this point in time, we live in a day and age where expansions exist, season passes exist, extended DLC for new story and whatnot exist, and Atlas is going the route of re-releasing $60 games and just like adding in stuff that doesn't feel worth how much you paid for it. That's the big thing. And the troubling thing about it too, the troubling thing about talking about this with Royal, and why I feel, and I think a lot of other people do feel like it's a scam, is because technically speaking, it's hard to do that when they've went out of their way to release it on other platforms like Steam, like Switch, like Xbox. So technically speaking, yeah, if you never played the Persona series, I mean, you got your exposure there, but for everyone else who had a PlayStation, it really fucking sucks. And this was what genuinely led to me having the last straw. This was where I was like, Persona 3 Reload is going to be the last game I buy. Because I didn't want this to be another case of, hey, we're having another re-release of Persona 3 Reload, and it's going to have the answer and everything combined, which I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did that as some kind of addition or whatnot. But no. Instead of re-releasing it with the answer or episode, I guess, right? They instead decided, we're going to release separate DLC that you can download if you want, but it doesn't take away from the original game or anything. And we'll sell it to you for half the price of what you pay for the actual game. And I prefer that a lot more than just them re-releasing Persona 3 Reload again with that epilogue and whatnot for $70 again. Like, for example, next year if they do that shit, you know what I mean? Like, I fucking hate that practice. And from what I'm hearing, I think like Sega is actually pushing Atlus to stop doing that, understandably so, and just kind of do what they've been doing with Persona 3 Reload, and that is like, yeah, if you're gonna add in some extra additional content and whatnot, or some improvements, you can update the game or fucking like release it as extra DLC or whatever. Don't re-release the fucking game. We don't live in that point in time where that was a really acceptable anymore. We don't. And if anything, it's a very poor financial price. Hell, I know there are still people who haven't bought Persona 3 Reload just because they're waiting for the definitive version to come out. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. There are people who haven't bought Metaphor yet because they want to wait until the supposed definitive version comes out. And I don't blame them. How can I blame them with a company like this that's been doing this for fucking years? Hard to really put the blame on anything that's on a subject that's just like, it's proven to be the truth. You know? It sucks. And I feel for the people who want to play these games but just are so pissed off at a company like this. I get it. I 100%. If there's anyone that gets it, it's me. 100%. I get it. I feel you. I empathize. I've been there. I fucking hate it. So you can understand my pain when I heard about Persona 3 Reload and saying, yeah, I really want them to stop re-releasing these games and just release the extra content and definitive version stuff just as a DLC for half the price. So the fact that we got like the answer as that, it's just like, it's not a perfect thing, right? They could be doing more with it, granted, but I'm glad we at least did that instead of the alternative. Now, the reason why the answer, as far as I've seen, has gotten hatred is because of this. It's because people don't like that it's an extended DLC. Funny little world we live in, huh? But for full transparency, right? The comments that I did see, the reviews I did see on Steam alone, were coming from people who bought, and let me pull this up here on my device, because it's coming from people who bought the other little versions that Atlus came out with Persona 3 Reload. I don't know if that's going to change down the line, but let me just pull this up. So, as of recording, you can buy the base game for Persona 3 Reload, which is, oh wow, it's $60. Although, I'm probably going to be releasing this, not going to lie, I'm probably going to be releasing this New Year's week, so if that is the case, I mean, the sale I'm looking at ends January 5th. So, if you're listening to this the day it comes out, probably you can still buy it. But yeah, you can get, for the winter sale, by the way, it's $27, which is, hey, good on you. You can also buy the digital deluxe edition, which is $31.49 on sale and $70 for the full sale. Or the digital premium edition, which is $90 normally and $40.49 on sale. And the reason why in particular a lot of people hated this is because, big surprise, they paid for the digital deluxe edition or the digital premium edition. And the reason for that being is because they thought they could cheat the system. These are people that thought they could get everything that Atlus would release for this game, DLC and everything. Like, not just stuff that came out when the game released, but also stuff that was going to come out, like the answer. And I like the I like the kind of hustle, but I also have to say, bro, like it's Atlas. Do you really? It's Atlas. It's AAA gaming. Did you really think that? I have to genuinely ask this. Did you really think that they would be more than willing to just let you go with spending less money on their fucking game outside of something like a sale? As far as I can tell, the digital deluxe edition comes with some, I think, DLC, like a digital art book, a soundtrack, and that's kind of it. Digital premium edition comes with some DLC packs, which I think are just costumes and maybe some personas and items, and that's kind of it. Now, the reason why people were mad was because they thought, let's be real here, they thought that because it said, hey, if we buy the most expensive version, we get the DLC, right? But they failed to actually look into what specifically they were getting for $90 on launch day. And so what happened was they got scammed. They got scammed, and when the answer came out, they were ultimately pissed because they had to spend an extra $35. Now, I want to say this from the bottom of my heart, not making fun or anything, right? If you're somebody who got the digital deluxe edition or the digital premium edition, right? You paid some extra money for this game, right? And you're like, oh, the extra story is $35. Oh, I should have. I didn't want to. I should have just bought the base game and then gotten that. Fuck. Why did I do that? That's fucking stupid. If you're like that, 100%, no hate. Because guess what? I've been there. I have been there more times than I can count. I get it. I understand. I feel you. Like, you bought the most expensive version, most likely because you had the money to, and you were feeling good, and you liked Persona, and you wanted to get the most bang for your buck. Only to realize that this company goes back and kicks you in the ass for spending way too much more than you should have. And you're like, I should have bought the base game, and I should have gotten that expansion DLC if I really wanted to. I would have spent less money on it. I probably would have saved up some. I get it. I understand. No hate there. No mouse or anything there. I get it. The most I can say to that is, hey, at least you're like the rest of us. At least you know now, and that's half the battle. Now, if you're still interested, right? You know, because obviously Persona 4 is going to have its remake, right? And if you're still interested in Persona, you're probably going to be checking that out, right? And chances are, let's be real here, it's gonna come out with another, we're gonna have a digital deluxe edition and a digital premium edition or some shit like that, right? We're gonna give you all the DLC except for, this extra content for gold and everything. We're gonna throw that on a separate DLC some months after the game releases. Now you know, right? Now you're gonna be like the rest of the people who are excited for it, and most likely you're gonna buy the base game, maybe some DLC like here or there, and then buy whatever expansion that you got going for you, right? Chances are that's probably what you're going to do. And look, I understand. I get it. Or maybe this is just where you decide to turn back and you say, you know what, I'm not going to buy anything from Atlas anymore. Fuck this company. I'm out. Hey, I get it. Because I'm kind of in the same boat. I get where a lot of these people are coming from. I don't mind it. But I will say this. If you're actually pissed off that, yeah, you bought the most expensive version and you really thought that Atlas as a company was just like, you're really taken aback and surprised over the fact that they made all these more expensive versions day one and you pre-ordered it and you really thought that they wouldn't do something like that, and you're mad because you got gypped and you're trying to force, or you're trying to like force hatred onto like this extra story because of that and everything. It's like, bro, get the clown horn, bro. You That's just, let me play you a sad song in the world's most violent. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. Shut the fuck up. It's, like, again, I get if you feel ripped off, and I get you feel like you got suckered. I get that. But, dude, why do you think that they're going to change? You, me, you and plenty of other people over the years, you, me, and plenty of other people over the years, if not the decades, have incentivized them not to change. Like, buying the most expensive version of these games off the get-go, that's just how you're gonna get gypped. You're gonna get ripped off. You're gonna get played for. So, you can either walk away from that or try to play their game. In the way I see it. Like, buy the base game, and then if there's some DLC you actually do like or want, look at it and go, okay. Like, just grab it individually. Maybe it's a little more expensive than if you just bought the full pack of the digital premium edition or whatever the fuck, but I guarantee you're going to spend a lot less money overall for the DLC as a whole that you want, as opposed to buying a bunch of DLC that you didn't ask for, nor do you care for, and only using a handful of it, or only paying attention to a little bit of it. I don't know. The reason why I bring it up is just because there's a bunch of people, like, throwing hatred at Persona 3 Reload's The Answer, Persona 3 episode, I guess, right? And it's all because they paid for the most expensive version and didn't get that with it, and they're trying to throw slander at this this game because it's just like, why didn't they just make it like with the actual game, or just release it in the, or just like, I've heard some people be like, man, I would prefer if this just like got re-released or something. It's just like, fuck no, dude. It's just like, this is the best you're gonna get. This is the best you're gonna get for a long while. That's pretty much it. Could the expansion be cheaper? Sure, absolutely it could, but this is just the best you're gonna get. This is the best we're gonna get for a while, so yeah, just deal with it. I guess deal with it or just get out of the way. That's all we can really do. I mean, like, hell, like, as much as I will go off about it and everything, like, dude, I'm pretty much retired from the series. I have not, the only thing regarding Atlas that I have bought is Metaphor Refantasio, and that's made by an entirely different studio that works at Sega next to Atlas, you know? That's not the people who do Persona at all. Well, I mean, it used to be, I think, because the director of 3 through 5 handled Metaphor Refantasio, but overall, it's an entirely different team. But yeah, overall, it's just like, yeah, I look, just if nothing else, you're gonna hear it here. These companies don't give a fuck about you. They don't. Not really. They don't give a fuck about you. They just want your money. That's it. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. Don't let anyone get twisted. That's not a bad thing. You know? It's the point of, like, that's the point of the business practices. They just want to be able to have success and want to be able to have their game be a success and make money. That's not a bad thing. Do I think it's, can be predatory? Do I think it could be better? Abso-fucking-lutely I do. I absolutely do. But I'm not gonna knock the hustle, because I get it. Look, everybody want money, and that ain't nothing wrong. And everybody want money. Everybody want a bag, and that ain't a problem. But we also got to keep in mind that just because everybody want a bag, don't mean that everybody deserve a bag. Or just because everybody want a bag, don't mean that everybody deserve the biggest bag. So, if Atlas is going to be doing what they're doing, hey, they can get their bag if they want, but it's all up to the consumer. It's all up to the customers. It's all up to us of whether or not, how much money we want to put into that bag, right? Because we could either pay top dollar for shit that, you know, we probably would have been better off if we just paid the normal price, right? And get ripped off again. Or we could just pay the normal price and not get ripped off again. Yeah, they won't be making as much money, but that also gets into the whole question of how much of that money is going to the developers. That's a question that doesn't really get asked. You notice that? How much money of this is actually going to the developers? Like, how much of the, let's say you paid $90 for the most expensive version of Persona 3 Reload, right? How much of that money is going straight into the developers' pockets? And how much of it is going to the CEOs? That's something that doesn't really get talked about too much, is it? So yeah, like, genuinely, I would say, hey, just, if you want to continue getting these games, just do what you can to save your money. Play smarter, not harder. You know? And hey, if you are, you know, like me, you're just like, this is either this game or before it and everything, you're just like, I'm done with Persona, I don't want to mess with the series anymore, I'm done with Atlas. I'm like, hey, I get it. I get it. I get it. I'm not going to fight on that. I get it. I 100% do. Like, there's plenty of other games out there that's going to be more suited to your playstyle. There's plenty of other games that are going to be less expensive and are going to be more suited to your own tastes and preferences. A lot more fish in the sea, bro. There's a lot more fish in the sea. Just find what makes you happy. You know, if you got the money, pay for it. Find what makes you happy and write it out if you can. Really, you can do. But yeah. Overall, I mean, Persona 3. It's even to this day, it's still something that I hold dear to my heart. I love Persona 3. It's to this day, I love the story of Persona 3. Its focus around death and mortality, and the whole value of life thing. I love it. I like the answer story and its focus around. I mean, the focus is around grief and aspects of humanity's narcissism. I really love this game, and it being essentially the first one that really got me hooked into the Persona series, I think it's not something I take for granted or anything. I love the music. I love I like the looks of the various different personas that they give and everything. I love the art direction. I like the character designs. Especially I love the character designs in Reload. And I like the performances. I like the performances. I like these characters for the most part. Yeah, I like these characters. Like, okay, on the whole, not entirely, but you know, you point me to certain characters, like, cause yeah, okay, I don't really know too many people who really enjoy characters like I think like Strega or even Yukari all that much. Not really. I know there, or even Fuka all that much. I know there are people who love it, but not really. Or even like Mitsuru all that much. But you point me to characters like Shinjiro, you point me to characters like Koromaru and Ken and so on and so forth. Like characters that have had a lot of time and focus into the story. And you get to see them grow and change, right? Like, yeah, the story there gets a little more like, yeah, there's a little more like layers to it. But yeah, I love this game, and I feel like in terms of essentially it being the one that essentially made the Persona formula what it is, it being done first, flaws and all, I think it's the one that did it the best. Do I think that 4 and 5 like added on to it and did what it did better? Yeah, in some respects I do. But you know, I feel like how they handled stuff like Nyx, how they handled stuff like the main character and being the chosen one and everything, I think how they handled all of this was really well, for the most part, it was really well done, and I really enjoyed it. and I can't say whether or not I will really like come back to play it anytime soon, because I played it once in Even the Answer, and it's like a lot of my problems are with the combat and everything, which is a bulk of the gameplay. But I genuinely for the time that I did, I enjoyed my time, which, by the way, anyone who wants to watch it, I did make a full playthrough of the base game story and everything. I did a full live stream series on that and everything. I even made like little intros and whatnot. So yeah, you can watch that if you watch me play it there if you want. But overall, I've really enjoyed this. I've just really enjoyed this this entry. I've just enjoyed Persona 3. I've loved the music. I love Persona 3. Like, there are parts and aspects of Persona 4 I love. There's even some things about Persona 5 I love. Don't get me wrong, but Persona 3 is just, to me, it's that game that I think, I don't know, maybe I should do more. I feel like I could do more of an in-depth discussion about it, because I don't know, I feel like I avoided a lot of the major bulk of Persona 3's specific story and talking more about my time playing the game and everything. And the main part of that is because I think a lot of its story is like, it's a story that at this point is over 20 years old. It's kind of like talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake and going over the story itself. And there are some changes and additions, yeah, but for the most part, it's still just Final Fantasy VII. It's still just Final Fantasy VII. You'd be more interested in talking about the changes. Maybe one of these days, if I feel up to it, I could probably make a podcast episode talking about like Persona 3 on the whole, but at the same time, I already kind of did one with Kagado. Kinda. But, yeah. I don't know. I think that's just gonna do it. But yeah. Thank you all so much for joining me on this episode of pretty much just talking about Persona 3 Reload. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining me, and links in the description, you know what to do. This has been the Autumn Colors Podcast, and I will see you all next time. Take care. Peace.
Say they love me and they treat me like a OG. Hey, hey, okay, let's go. Okay, let's go. Okay. Say they love me and they treat me like the OG. Never felt the love of many people who know me. Promise that I won't forget the lesson.